you may well be in more of a mess than you realize. Now, before I unpack what I mean by that, let me just introduce myself. I'm Daizan, and I'm a teacher at a practice community we have in London, and actually spreading through the UK, and we have members around the world now, called Zenways. You can find out what we're up to at our website called zenways.org. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, all the normal places. It's all based on donations, so if you want to join, you find value in this kind of thing, please go right ahead. Please also, if you're interested in more YouTube material, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, that means you get to be notified, apparently, of when new things come out. We try to bring new things out pretty much every week. So, you may be in more of a mess than you realize. Our School of Zen, when you go way back to its kind of early stages, has been characterized as sudden enlightenment, gradual practice. That's a very good characterization of it. So, this sudden enlightenment thing, I've talked about this in other videos, and you can probably see on the channel. It's not very difficult to get a first step into the world of enlightenment, the world of seeing things how they really are, the world of waking up to the reality of who and what you are and how and what the universe is. It can be done in a matter of days, actually, and we run a series of 3-day retreats called Breakthrough to Zen, which are solely geared to help people do exactly that. And when somebody achieves that breakthrough, it changes everything. But the story is not over. If you turn your attention as much as you can right now back to your earliest time of life. Perhaps you could close your eyes and just think back as far as you can. Now, some of us can remember further back than others. But if you can remember back at least a reasonable distance, you were born utterly vulnerable. You couldn't even hold your head up. You couldn't stand up. You couldn't feed yourself. You couldn't basically do anything. You were utterly dependent on others. Your existence and the fact that you've survived this long is due to the fact that others, most often your mother, not 100% of the time, but most often your mother or a mother substitute, have cared for you very deeply and very intensely. Now, almost certainly your mother, or the person who took the role of your mother, wasn't an enlightened person. So, within this utter vulnerability of not only your early hours, but actually years of time when you were completely dependent, you almost certainly discovered, perhaps very early, perhaps it took a little longer, that you weren't fully acceptable. There were certain things you did, certain things that you said that weren't allowed. Now, depending on the maturity and the acceptance and the degree to which your mother figure dealt with her own stuff, you may have received more or less unconditional love, but you probably received at least some conditional love, where you were okay if you did this, but this, and this, and sometimes really a lot was not acceptable. A lot of this can get set up in your first days, weeks, months on this planet, and certainly before you're 4 or 5 years old. And so you discover that you are utterly vulnerable, and you have to edit your presentation of who and what you are in order to keep those who are, as it were, preserving you in this state of vulnerability from rejecting you. And so you've become a fake. Some of us have had to do more of this, some of us not so much, but probably all of us have done some of this, socialized some of this. And in many cases, we've had to bury in many cases, it's the rage, the frustration, the fury, the hatred, those kind of emotions haven't been allowed to be known, haven't been allowed to be expressed, haven't been acceptable within our framework, within our little world that we've grown up in. And so we've censored them, we've buried them. Now, when we come to practice, it's not uncommon for this stuff to start to emerge again, because it's been buried but it hasn't been killed. When strong emotions start to arise, when we start to feel unacceptable things, hatred for our mother, terror of our father, many emotions can start to arise, and in many cases very primitive seeming. It's really, really important that we allow them to do so. Now, as they do arise, depending on the amount of stuff that we've had to bury over the years, there can be greater or lesser force behind them. It's really important that as we allow them to arise, it's very important that we don't act them out. What I mean by that is, and I see this as a teacher a lot, perhaps somebody has something relating to their father, fear or hatred relating to their father. When this stuff isn't fully conscious as it's arising, then that'll get projected onto the nearest convenient father figure. Now that might be the Prime Minister, it might be some other figure in the media, it might be me as the teacher, it might be their actual father, who now is a 85-year-old man who, couldn't inspire terror in a dandelion. However, when these feelings arise, they can be quite compelling. So our job as practitioners is to allow them to arise without reacting to them or running with them, providing, if you like, a safe space in which they can arise, be seen, be known, and allowed to have their play, or to, if you like, to play out. When we do that, all this unlived life that gets buried can start to re-emerge, can start to, as it were, reintegrate. Very often we see radical shifts in our level of energy, because it takes tremendous energy to lock all this stuff down. We very often see tremendous shifts in different aspects of health, all kinds of autoimmune problems, allergies, all kinds of things can start to resolve just through allowing this buried stuff that's just gets, as it were, planted, because at the time when these strong feelings are there, we've got no way to process them or deal with them. We just don't know what to do. We're too young. We haven't got enough life experience. Now we can, as it were, allow them to have their play. And all that rage, all that terror, all that antipathy towards those that we supposedly love, as it's allowed to come, as it's allowed to untwist, it all contributes to our general vitality. It all finds its place. None of it's wrong, none of it's evil, none of it needs to be cut off. In fact, the more we try to cut it off, the more it'll go underground, and it'll make us sick, or it'll make us crazy, or it'll warp our sense of the world, our sense of what, for example, family life might be, or perhaps even more seriously, how we should relate to those tiny, vulnerable lives that come within our purview, perhaps our own children, or children within our own family, or within other spheres. So, it's vitally important for your own health, your own well-being, your own progress in practice, that you face this ugly stuff. And it's vitally important for those around you as well, because this stuff affects you, whether it's buried or whether it's present, arising and resolving. It affects your every relationship, your entire view of the world. It's possible to have a very clear, beautiful and definite understanding, enlightenment if you like, and still have a mountain of this unresolved stuff that's affecting you. Those two things can coexist. When they do, if you're unwilling to face the potential ugliness, power, antisocial nature of that buried material, then it's going to play out. Your enlightenment can turn bad, or it can serve less than noble aims. So please use your courage, your presence, your new stability that adulthood and a cultivated meditation practice has given you, to allow this deep work to go on, where this stuff that's in the depths can be allowed to arise and resolve. If you do that, your practice will continue for your own benefit and for the benefit of the world.